All right, so today I'm delighted to have, for the first time ever on the Sasuga podcast, two guests at once. So we have Satomi and Josh. So Satomi, could you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Hi, I'm Satomi, and my husband and I own three Japanese restaurants in Buffalo, New York.
Wow, okay. And Josh, do you want to say a quick
Yes, so we own them together. She's the executive chef and quality control, and I handle more of the marketing, social media, and I also podcast on the side.
Yes, and thank you so much because you invited me to be a guest on your podcast, and we'll put a link in the show notes of this episode if anyone wants to go and listen to your podcast. I'm sure they do, and you can hear a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey, which was a lot of fun to talk about that with you. All right, so Satomi, what about word of the year? This is one thing that I start off by asking our guests. What's an important word for you this year?
The word for this year, 2020, I would choose family. Because we are quarantining now and we spend so much time with my kids and my husband, and I am just seeing how important it is to have family near me when the world is going through this tough time.
Mm-hmm. And how many kids do you have?
We have a daughter and my son, so two.
And how old are they?
12 and 9.
Okay. So they've been having to stay home from school as well.
Yes. So yes. No school since
middle of
March. Yeah. And no after school, no program. So they're just home all the time.
And you said about it's it's been an opportunity to be with family. So what I hear from a lot of our Sasuga podcast listeners is that there's kind of the pros and cons, because it's nice to be with family and sometimes it's a little bit challenging to be with family all the time, especially when you're working. So what are your thoughts around that?
It is tough, and luckily my husband is home when I have to leave for work, and that's helping. We spend a lot of time. We have outside area, so we play outside when it's nice. We barbecue, and they talk to us. That's the age is still in the good range that they still need us and they want to spend time with us. So that's great, and we're trying to teach, but I'm not a teacher by nature, so it's difficult when it comes to teaching.
Juggling online
learning.
Yeah,
online learning. The school district had some program for online courses, but it's difficult to teach the curriculum. But other than that, we are loving the time together.
Okay, well that's great. And so you said as well that you have to leave for work. So, and you have the restaurants, right? So you're actually physically going to the restaurants. How has that been? And what sort of challenges have you faced during this, the whole pandemic?
Yes. So we are in the restaurant business, and like other countries, the America, well, more than other countries, the America is facing tough time, and we were forced to do only takeout for a while, and they open up the outdoor dining and then indoor dining, but still 50% capacity. And we have 3 locations, but we fully closed one location because it was in the office district.
Oh, right.
And the offices are all closed and there were no business. So we closed one location, but we kept takeout business at 2 other locations. And first, we didn't know how the customers coming back or even want to do takeout. So in the beginning, I was running with skeleton staff members, and I was fully in it. But luckily, we started to gain in takeout business, and we were able to rehire many of our staff members, and so now we are doing better than before, and I have more time to myself. But in the beginning, it was uncertain, so
Yeah.
I had to go there and be there and monitor everything.
What was the most difficult for you? And if you have, I don't know if you have like a particular day that you remember during this time that was the most challenging for you, and how you managed to overcome this. Because again, this is something that a lot of our listeners are interested in, is, you know, we see successful people around us, so that they're looking to you as a successful businesswoman, and the sort of struggles that you have had, especially recently in the pandemic.
Difficult time. Well, we worry about our staff members' health too, and one of our staff member had a contact with one of the COVID patient that we got the call from the health department that he might he might have the COVID, so he had to quarantine. So that time, waiting for his result to come back, I was terrified if this staff was in the restaurant, might have affected some other staff members or customers. That was the most difficult time for me. But luckily, his test result came back negative, and we are able to run the restaurant as is. But it will happen, and we have to make sure that the health of our staff member first, and implement all the procedures that we take to sanitize and mask on, and those are maybe the difficult part.
And when you're going through that kind of that uncertainty and that, I mean, you were terrified basically. How do you deal with that for you personally, or how did you deal with it?
How did I? We have great staff members, and they communicate and they support each other. So more than anything, I was encouraged by other staff members that don't worry, we will make it work.
Right.
So I don't know, I didn't take that much leadership there. It was more of a community feeling that we developed throughout this time.
So that's interesting. When I hear that as well, that actually tells me something about you as a leader, is that because your staff was so cooperative and open, they respect you as a leader, right?
I suppose. I am not a aggressive leader. I am quiet and just let them run. which I think is a different type of leadership.
Yeah, and it's also an effective type of leadership as well, because it helps to it can help to bring out the best in the people. So that when you get an aggressive type of leadership, sometimes you might get short-term results, but you also get a lot of unhappy people.
Yeah, well, we learned.
Yeah, I love that. It's also, what I'm hearing is like your sense of family, and that kind of extends out to your staff as well. I love that. So could you tell us a little bit about your transition from being, because you were originally working in a company in Osaka, is that right? In the corporate world?
Right. I was an in-house interpreter, translator, and it was a small company. So I did different things. The shipping arrangement to translating catalog. When we had a guest, we were in the meeting room and I was interpreting the meeting. So yeah, I did that for 9 years in Osaka.
And then what happened? How did you get where you are now?
Well, so Josh was going to the university, master's and PhD program, and he graduated. And that around that time, his father was diagnosed with some difficult muscle disease. So he really wanted to come back home and be with his family. And I also had my first baby, and I went back to work, but I was pregnant with my son. So it was getting hectic to go to work, being pregnant, and having 2-year-old, 1-year-old at home. And it was maybe the busiest time of my life. So timing wise, we just decided it's time to go back to his hometown.
Right. And how did you feel about that?
How did I feel about that?
Yeah.
I was excited about going into a different world. I did the working in corporate in Japan for 9 years, and it was great experience, but I wanted to try something different. And yeah, so that was great. I was also first the mother, like learning mother, trying to figure out how to raise kids and being pregnant. So I needed some time away from work.
Right.
Time,
yeah.
so.
I had just graduated from Osaka University and we were planning on moving back to Buffalo and to start and stay with my family. They had a larger house, so we were all going to live together for a little while because we had been in Japan for about 13 years altogether. So it was, yes, I was moving back home with my parents, but it was, there was so much distance that we had for a while that, it was kind of a break that we needed. And then I got a job at the university here in Buffalo. So kind of, we were all jumping into a new situation, but we had, family support. So.
Right. And Josh, can you tell us about how you met? I don't know the story of how
Sure,
I was doing the exchange student.
So she's from Fukui, and when she graduated high school in Fukui, she went to Central Washington in the States, near Seattle.
Washington State.
Right.
From there, she did a national exchange to my university in Buffalo.
Right.
And I had just gotten back from a year study abroad at Kansai Gaidai, and I was working in the bookstore at Buffalo State. And she was a customer, and I had a big T-shirt on. I was a super geek at the time, and it said like Kansai Gaigodai. And and there are not a lot of Asian or Japanese people around. So when I saw her come into the bookstore, I thought, oh, maybe she'd understand what it says. She ignored me at first for a little while, but then eventually through, I think the Asian Studies group or something like that, we got to know each other from there. And eventually became boyfriend, girlfriend. And we were 1 year apart in university. So then when I graduated, I was on the JET program back to Kobe, and she then had to go finish up her final year in Seattle. So we had 1 year apart, and then I drug her back to Japan.
I wanted to go on the master's program, and I wanted to stay in the States, but somehow I went back to Japan.
somehow. Was that the pull?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something, maybe Japan was pulling her back, or something in Japan was pulling her back to Japan. And she settled down in Nishinomiya area. And then she had job hunted for a while, and then found her job at the international company in Osaka.
Okay, great. My husband actually went to Kansai Gaidai as well. So,
Yeah.
So then tell us about that transition, because we talked a little bit before starting the recording, and you said, Satomi, that you thought you were like the traditional Japanese woman, and you never thought that you would be an entrepreneur or a leader or anything like that. So could you tell us a little bit about that change?
Sure. So I was expecting to be a wife of a college professor, and that was kind of my goal. And then he decided that he wanted to start a business. And I go, oh, what? So originally his brother had a degree in horticulture, and he wanted to do a garden center or like landscape business. And we were searching for a location, and we found a location near us, and that location happened to have a kitchen, a commercial kitchen. And so they started their landscape garden center business, and I was kind of forced to, Satomi, use this kitchen and do something. And so, okay. And my parents owned a restaurant in Japan. So they owned a ramen restaurant. But we were thinking maybe ramen, and I can't really do ramen here. So we started a cafe. And so this whole restaurant business thing was just because that location had kitchen. And I had to do something with the kitchen.
Well, we had the market in Buffalo, like there was sushi was popular. Sushi's been popular everywhere, but there's never been actual Japanese people making it here. And so you never had any home cooked Japanese, or there's no tempura, there's no, anything beyond sushi. And from her coming from a ramen restaurant background, as well as like the landscape, like Fukui's heavy snow and Buffalo is heavy snow. So we figured, this is, and that's how we kind of originally thought of it, was like, this is Japanese soul food that I know people around here will really take to if we can sort of educate them on it. So that was sort of, we gave it a go, and
somehow we figured it out. And I just missed eating ramen. And so I needed to do something so that I can eat what I like. And we originally learned from my father a little bit, but we had to recreate pretty much everything here.
Right. So you started off as a you said a cafe. So is that like Japanese kissaten? Like what sort of food were you?
Yeah, so we had a lot of tea selections. We had some home cooking recipes like teriyaki and dumplings.
The image was, we were taking a whole image of something that we had seen that was popular in like England, where garden centers are like destination spots where there's a cafe over here and there's like plants, but there's also like it's almost like a mujirushi kind of feeling over here. And so that was what we were going for, but people were just sort of confused. They were like, so which is it? What's going on here? And we realized that the garden center and the plant industry it's a price down. It's like, who's going to sell it the cheapest, when we were trying to do quality and beauty. And people were loving the Japanese food and the authenticity that was there. But we were in sort of quite a rural area that the majority of our customers were coming from the city.
Mm.
So after a while, we were like, I think this can really work if we put ourselves in a trendy area, like the center of the city, and let the people who can step out of their comfort zone a little more appreciate it. So that's first business. We shut that down and we
moved
to the location.
Wow.
And then expanded and then expanded again.
And his brother also moved on to a different job. So the landscape, the garden center side, we just discontinued and just focus on the Japanese restaurant. And here we go. I'm running this now.
Yeah.
I thought it was your business and now it's mine. So I'm a accidental owner.
Yeah.
Accidental owner. So,
Yeah.
well, Josh mentioned one of our favorite expressions here on the Sasaga podcast is stepping out of your comfort zone. And Satomi, it sounds like you've gone through all these different transitions in your life, and you've had to step out of your comfort zone multiple times. Could you share about, if there's any particular story of stepping out of your comfort zone that comes to mind, or how you actually do that? Because, for our listeners, many of them may be, if they're not so used to the concept, they may be, I don't want to step out. I don't want to do something. What if I fail? What will people think of me? Could you share a little bit about that?
Well, if you have a choice, you fear what if, but if you don't have a choice, you will just put in the position that, okay, I got to figure something out. And that was kind of where that's where I was. And I do remember why this happened, but I didn't question much more. I didn't have time, I didn't have resource, and I had to figure it out.
What would you say to women in particular who are hesitant themselves, if they don't have a forcing mechanism?
Forcing mechanism.
If they don't have forcing them, and yet they to benefit from stepping out of their comfort zone, what do you say to them?
If you can get rid of the fear, for me it was easier because I was forced. But if you break the shell and get out of it, I think it's easier than you think. More, it's less, I don't know, out of comfort. It will become your comfort zone once you're in it. So,
yeah, exactly. Like when you step out, then your comfort zone actually grows. What about you, Josh? Because it's not just the women who have this stepping out of comfort zone thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. So when we opened the first restaurant in the city, that was just called Sato. So we named it after her, Sato. Satomi is from Sato, and it was tough. I mean, the restaurant business and the profit margins are tough. Yeah. And the problem was we were doing great. It was popular. We were getting a lot of national press, and local press and national, but we were both in the kitchen all the time. And it was sort of like, how can we be this busy and working all the time and not really having much to show for it? Like, I don't see physically how we can't sell anymore ourselves, and labor costs are only going up. So we have to do something. So for me, I realized, I was thinking maybe entrepreneurially that all our eggs are in one basket, and our basket is only this big. And if something happens and something goes wrong, like, it's all over. So I was leaning more towards expanding. And I think I did nudge. Force is a strong word, but I nudged to look into the option of expanding the brand. And part of the reasoning was also that, like, her family definitely comes from a business mindset, but it's a very, I'd say, traditional Japanese like craftsmanship, where like in her family's restaurant, like her father knew the recipes. He was there making the ramen
throughout his life.
The only time, but the way I saw it was like, that's a beautiful thing, but they could also never go on vacation. If he was sick, he was still there. And I just didn't, when we were sort of caught up in that, that was not my idea of starting a business to have some lifestyle freedom as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think little by little, we realized that by expanding and delegating some of that authority to other people allowed us to expand. And we had to adjust the niche and change the concept a little bit, because the second one was more of a pure ramen bar near a university, as where the other one was a little bit trendy. And then the third one incorporated like a craft brewery for the people downtown. So it wasn't just a franchise model, but I think that's where things started to change, and she started to realize if both of us let go of control a little bit, and she now spent more time teaching the other chefs how to recreate her recipes, then she was more free to do like quality control and kind of have a grip on the business altogether. So I think, she developed as a leader that way, like tremendously.
Right. Did you hear that, Satomi? Yeah.
He is good at making me feel, okay, maybe I can do this, encouraging me to do something other than what I usually do.
And she always says like she's not a teacher. I don't feel like a leader, but I think maybe from some certain, like if you say teacher, okay, maybe she's not the type of person who wants to stand at the front of a classroom and teach high schoolers.
Yeah.
But she's teaching our employees Japanese customs and her way of cooking and the proper motenashi and that kind of thing. And that's a true teaching and a leadership that it may not fit the definition of what we think of as a leader, but I think she's grown into that leadership position.
Yeah, and I would say as well the definition of leadership is changing. It's changed a lot over the years. From in the old days, we would think of a leader as the very sort of top-down sort of person, and now there's a lot more recognition of like soft skills as a leader. Really listening, and it sounds like that's Satomi. You've definitely got the strengths there. So, not dismissing that type of leadership at all. In fact, I think we need more of it personally. Yeah, that's fantastic. So I think it's probably time to be getting to wrap up this episode. So I want to check what else you want to share with our listeners today.
What else? I think the positive encouragement from your friends and coworkers, boss, I think it really helps.
Yeah.
I was lucky to have Josh, and who is encouraging me to do this. And homeru is really important. That is not done so much in Japan. And I'm so used to it now here, being in the States. Maybe it's a little bit too much sometimes, that you need some criticism to grow.
Yeah.
But in Japanese society, I think it's lacking in some environments. So I really encourage women in Japan to be confident and grow and be who you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And being surrounded by those positive
encouragement.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to, so this is a theme we've also had on other episodes of the Sasuga podcast with other guests, is that it's also important to share how you're truly feeling about things, so that other people can give their perspectives and can encourage you. Because if you keep everything to yourself, then you can be like just struggling on your own. So looking at being more open and finding the supportive people in your environment. Yeah, love that. And so tell us more about the podcast, how people can, I'm not sure how many listeners we have right now in Buffalo, but
yeah, if you're ever near Niagara Falls or
and
Buffalo.
You can't really travel now, so.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, maybe we have some in the area, and certainly in the future, as people are listening to this, they can come and visit your restaurant. So tell us a little bit about podcast and restaurants and where people can find out more about you. And we'll put this in the show notes too.
Okay. Well, so the podcast I have is called Small Business Japan. And it's just as it said, I want to kind of highlight the small businesses and the entrepreneurs who are Japan related. Sometimes they're foreigners in another country, or they're Japanese people abroad, or people giving it a go on their own in Japan. So
not just in Japan.
Not just in Japan, yeah, all over the world. And I think the key thing is that, it's creative people and people who are finding their own path. And it's kind of highlighting that, not everyone is doing the same thing, and there's different routes to happiness in life. And that's sort of like what I try to tie everything into. And, like we were just saying, finding that community of people who are like-minded is really important. And someone like yourself, who's like a coach that can facilitate that, it harbors that safe space with guidance, is sort of the way I see it. And, maybe one of these, one of the listeners is, it starts out as they get a little positive encouragement from somebody in your group. It's start a side hustle. And, that turns into, okay, I don't need to be doing my 9 to 5 and I'm going to, run my flower shop now. Or, it's just, you never know where life's going to take you. And, that's sort of what I like to highlight.
That's wonderful. And I traditionally, I had mostly corporate listeners, and more I've noticed that we have entrepreneur or moving into entrepreneurship, and also the women that are coming into, for example, the Sasuga VIP Women's Coaching Program. We've got more entrepreneurs, especially this time. We've got more entrepreneurs, and it's wonderful because they can, they can inspire each other. And I'll definitely be recommending to them all to be listening to your podcast as well.
And let me know if you have any guests that would love to come on the show.
All right. I love that. Stepping out of the comfort zone by being wonderful. All right. And I'll be keeping in mind for my future plans if I'm in Buffalo.
If you ever be in Buffalo.
Yeah, we can give you a tour, Niagara Falls, maybe go near Toronto. It's all there.
Wonderful. I do have other friends in the area, so I'll also be letting them know. Okay.
Great.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great, like having both of you being able to join us. It's been fantastic to get like two different perspectives as well. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you
so
too.
much.